What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Lisa Barnett, who is the founder of the Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. As an internationally known author, teacher, and Akashic healer with more than 20 years' experience in the spiritual healing forum, Lisa has created resources to bring you clarity and healing through ancient Akashic knowledge using sacred prayers, vibration keys. Lisa teaches you how to access the healing wisdom of the Akasha so you can learn about your soul's path and purpose, along with guidance on steps to enhance your life in the present moment. You will also learn about soul contracts, karma, vows and blocks that hold you back from creating the life your heart and soul desires. Lisa Barnett, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm really excited to be here with you in the UK now.
Yes, thank you. It's great to have you on. Whereabouts in the States are you as well?
I'm near San Francisco, California.
Wow, what a wonderful place. Well, that's a good starting point then. Let's tell me a bit about yourself to the audience, please.
Let's see. Well, I have been living here. I've been very blessed to be a Californian, born and mostly raised here. So it's a good place to do this sort of esoteric work. And I started working really as a teenager, which is kind of interesting. And growing up here in California, San Francisco in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, lots of information, lots of healing classes, wisdom, teachers, all very great. So that's where I started pretty long time ago, the 70s. Wow, I can't even do that math anymore. Anyway. Um, but for me, then, I was so very awake as a kid in that way that I really, as a little toddler, could remember not being in a physical body. And I used to tell my mother I wanted to go home. And so,
Wow.
poor mom, she thought I was a little nuts. But but I was blessed to be here in California and get to really, as a teenager, read all sorts of information and just start a healing spiritual journey back then. So that is now really culminated in me being able to share the infinite wisdom of the Akashic Records with the world.
Fantastic, fantastic. And what would you say were some of your influences in sort of spiritual text?
Well, one of my favorite books, and interesting, I was just kind of rereading one of them, is a book called Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. Now, Robert Monroe passed away, I believe, in the 90s, but he started Monroe Institute, which you've probably heard of. And of course, having started wanting to leave my body at 3 years old, it was one of the first books I read at 13. So there's a couple of them, and he's done some fascinating work and traveling. I love Paulo Coelho, and The Alchemist was another kind of groundbreaking book of the 70s, as well as many of his books are. But, at that time, there was Carlos Castaneda and a lot of the shamanic information, really a lot of different sorts of esoteric work. There was, they started talking about the Akashic Records back then. But the interesting thing was Edgar Cayce had channeled the Akashic Records as a sleeping prophet back in the 20s, 30s. But there was no easy way to access the records. Even in all of the Edgar Cayce writings, I don't believe he really teaches how to do that. So that was always an interesting piece to me. I literally was taught when I started to study with a teacher in the 90s, a healing teacher, that you were not allowed to access the Akashic Records because they were really off limits. And what I found later, what I was told by the Akashic beings of light that keep our records, is that is old information, because the Akashic Records literally were off limits for about 1,000 years. So they are now here to be accessed. We are really, they want us to come and learn about our own soul records, the library of our souls, and we could talk more about that if you want.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned a very important point there. Sorry to sort of butt in there, but what beings were these that you accessed? Who gave that information over to you? That the times had changed, that we can access these records now.
Well, the interesting thing is that, and I'm just going to give my little definition so that we're all on the same page, right? So my definition of the Akashic Records is that it is the record of your soul from the time your soul individuates from source through millions or billions of years until it eventually returns home back to source. And because you have these huge, really expansive, infinite records, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lives here on planet Earth alone, not to mention other places, planes, planets, dimensions, we have our own library, and we literally have our own librarians. So people have often referred to them as record keepers, or I refer to them often as the Akashic beings of light. There are many energy beings that are pure divine source that keep our records. And the interesting thing is they're only in service to you. So you have your very own Akashic Record keepers. I have mine. Everybody has their very own separate library and their beings of light that keep their records. And the interesting thing, too, is that they're not they're different than the ascended masters, than any of the angels, than any of the other realms, because these beings have not been human. They literally are pure source vibration.
Wow, that's incredible. Beings of light. And would you go down, or could you go down the road that these beings are maybe from a much higher level than where we initially go to when we cross over?
Yes, in a sense, because they are very funny. They are pure unconditional love. And so I'll share one of the stories that they have told me about kind of how this goes. So, um, when we first individuate from source, we decide to, take this separate journey. We want to experience all that has been created, all the creator has created. We want to experience that. So we make this kind of step into this place of course, we're always one, but this apparent separation. So we have a soul in a body, or etheric body at least, and we go off on a journey. Well, some of us, before we go off on this big, long, billions of year journey, we decide that we're going to learn more about the world and what's out there and what's available. And so instead of jumping on a bus or heading to the airport and, going off into the universes, we literally become the record keepers. So we are pure. Again, we haven't been journeying. We don't have beliefs or opinions. We haven't been human. We literally are the energy of source that is individuated, but not I don't know what the word is. We're individuated, but we are now being these record keepers, these beings of light, being of service. And then once we kind of get our ideas, we spend hundreds or thousands of years keeping the records for people, then we often decide to go off on a journey and become human and travel and see what's out there in the galaxies.
Incredible. I mean, I'm just writing my own book, and I channel myself, and one of the chapters was dictated by the beings of light, and that was just a bit of an aha moment when you mentioned that, and it's like, actually, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've had this experience, and they were a pretty amazing experience. Let me put it that way. They were very high. They'd come from a dimension that was beyond where we go to. This was a much higher level that they'd come through just to to give a message over for a chapter. So very interesting that is. Okay, so. Wow, loads of questions here. Right. Well, just going back a bit as well. When did you first start accessing your own records, and when did you know that they were the Akashic records for you?
Well, for me, it was a little bit odd because, again, as a small child who was completely unconscious and unaware of, the difference of dimensions, I could remember and access and remember these kind of souls, this much greater beingness. But it wasn't until, I'm going to say it was probably the 90s. Yeah, it was somewhere in the 90s that I was working as an intuitive energy healer. And sometimes when I would be working with a client, I would get this huge information. It was way bigger energy, vibration, healing than I usually received, right? So when I was doing my more normal version of my psychic healing, this was expansive. I would get information about people's soul purpose, about their past lives, about what they've come to do. soul contracts. It just was like, it was like I was skyrocketed to the moon instead of just hanging out on the, 20th floor looking down on the bigger picture of life here on earth. But I just felt like, wow, I could see everything. It was a trip. And the energy was so high, and these beings had these kind of loud booming voices to me. And I'd always just think, wow, that was amazing. But kind of the big joke to me is that I never thought to ask who I was talking to. So one of the reasons I always share that with people is, if you start channeling something, ask who they are and where they're from. So my intuitive hit is, since I'm always in the records, is that the beings of light you're channeling, you could ask them, are you the Akashic beings of light, or are you beings of light from another dimension? So we often forget to ask who we're talking to. And so that went on for about 5 years, but I didn't have an easy way to connect to them. So what I realized was, when I came together with a high vibrational client to do some work, this high energy would come in. But if I was working with someone who was struggling maybe in a denser pattern, I might not have been able to pull us into that energy because I didn't know how. I didn't have a tool. So what happened after about this 5 years is I found out that there were some tools to do this more consciously, something that was much easier than Edgar Cayce's sleeping trance. Now, I was going into a very deep trance. It wasn't a sleeping hypnotic trance, but that was one way that I did access the records. But I was taught that there were sacred prayers which act as a vibrational key. So you imagine you're turning that lock, you're getting in that elevator, and you're able to raise your vibration into the Akashic field. So I now use and teach people how to use a vibrational key to easily, consciously move into their Akashic records while kind of wide awake. You can walk through your life literally channeling information like I'm doing by just using a vibrational key. So it's pretty profound and life-changing.
That's fantastic. I mean, that is life-changing, yeah, for yourself and for the clients that you've been helping over all these years as well. That's incredible. And so if people come to yourself, then how can accessing these records help in their lives from whatever issues that they may have in this incarnation?
Yeah, so what I find with most clients is that there's many, many layers. We're very unique and complex souls. And so we come to bring our gifts to the world. We come to complete some old karma, which to me is these often past lives in which we were just incomplete. We didn't learn the lesson. For some reason, we left the story. We may have died or left a relationship or just kind of said, I'm not doing this. I don't want to go there. And so we end up kind of not completing what we've come to complete. So the truth is that we come to Earth because we love to learn. This is one of the most powerful and yet challenging dimensions there is out there. And it's beautiful, it's spectacular. There's no other place where you have these sorts of sunrises and sunsets, yummy, amazing food, holding a newborn baby, being able to create another life. All of these pieces are so profound, and we rarely get that in any other dimension. So when we can see the truth of our story or our issues or whatever it might be that we're struggling with, it makes it so much easier for us to go forward and start to make changes, make new choices, transform our lives, do things differently, right? So when I work with clients in the Akashic Records, we can look at all of these pieces. What karma is incomplete? What did I come to learn? What gifts do I have to give? What's my soul purpose? What soul contracts do I have with my family members, my family of origin? So there's just millions, hundreds of questions you could ask. And when I teach people to do this, that's one of the things that can be so empowering, is that you can use this tool every day in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, whatever concerns you may have, whether it's, as you say, soul contracts with family or your partners, money issues, or, maybe it's weight concerns, or, whatever it may be, all answers lie within then.
Yes, it really does, because it's interesting. So you bring up weight concerns. It's a good one, because there are many different lifetimes in which we've starved to death and we've made vows that say, I am never going to be hungry again. I don't ever want to starve to death again. And we find that we've then genetically picked a family in which there may be a genetic predisposition to being a larger person, or to retaining weight, or whatever that is genetically. And so there's a part of you and your soul and your maybe old fear that is serving. So when we start to realize these sorts of things in the Akashic Records, we can look at those old vows and soul contracts and karma, and we can clear and release and work through a lot of that, so we can let go of some of that emotional pain, physical pain of starving to death, that trauma from other lifetimes, so we can let that go. We can help to soothe the body and the soul, so that possibly the body will say, oh, I'm not afraid anymore. I don't have to hold on to this weight to stay alive and to stay safe. So we start to see all sorts of different ways that we can work with our health, with our weight, again, with our finances.
And forgiveness as well.
Oh, absolutely. Forgiveness is huge. So one of the things that the Akashic Masters always love to talk about is they love to remind us that forgiveness is the easy path to enlightenment. When we can really completely and utterly forgive all of those around ourselves, anyone who may have hurt or harmed us in this life or other lives, when we can truly forgive, ourselves for being human, for all the things that we, hold against ourselves, right? And we can come to a place of real, true neutrality. We're able to open our hearts to such an extent that we can live in a place of unconditional love, of very pure, divine love. And this is the easy path to awakening, to enlightenment.
Right. And I suppose that's the same for, I've been doing a lot of the law of attraction reading just recently, very heavily into that right now. But there may be blocks that come from a past life to the reason why there's not enough abundance in your life now.
Yes, absolutely. So I do a lot of work for clients around money issues. So I even have a home study program called Transform Your Hidden Money Beliefs and Your Limiting Money Beliefs, because they come from so many levels and layers. We have limiting beliefs that come from our family, our parents, those people around us. A lot of times there are things that they have said to us or they have said to each other, but also very often they are energetic patterns that we pick up as children. There's the beliefs that we're not good enough to make money, we're not good enough to share our gifts. There is ancestral lineages and energies that come down through the lineage, not to mention past lives where, again, we were spiritual beings, say maybe we were monks or priests or nuns, and we took vows of poverty. Or the other possibility, the other flip side of that, because we always like to do both sides, right? It's all about learning the complete, totality of a concept. So if we were really poor, if we took vows of poverty. The truth is, we've always also had lives where we were very, very wealthy. And so sometimes we either died alone because we were not so nice when we had money, or we've had some sort of lives or numerous lives where we didn't feel good enough because we didn't have money. We didn't have enough money for a dowry, so we never got married. So all of these energies are they don't all show up always, but they can play into our lack. And one of the big pieces of lack is our ability to receive. So if you imagine, I often get this image from the Akashic Masters of us standing there with a little, like say a little beggar's bowl, right? And this is all the room we have to receive. But the truth is, we want to have a receiving vessel that's infinite, right? So that we are able to receive all of the abundance of the universe in all forms, whether it's money or love or health or joy or, friends and family and just light. We want to really be able to receive it all, and we have to be able to expand and open. And so lots of different little blocks that play into that too, our ability to receive.
Yeah, that is so true. And sometimes when we see that we are the creators of our reality, that we've created whatever issues are in our life, which is a big one to swallow sometimes, that that can also help us heal on our path as well. And like you say, accessing these records holds all the clues, doesn't it? All the answers. So do you think as well that when you heal, if you're healing yourself in this lifetime by accessing these records, you're actually healing your past lives as well?
Absolutely. The way the Akashic Masters, beings of light, there's actually I digress very often because they like to explain things. There are actually many beings. So you have Akashic Lords, masters, teachers, and we often generally call them beings of light or record keepers. So I apologize if I confuse people by calling them by different names. They are all the energetic beings that are keeping your records for you. So what they like to share with us is that, of course, there is no time and space. And so by knowing this truth, we can literally move outside of what we consider time and space, and we can literally heal a past life which changes this present moment. So one of the most profound healing energies is, again, because we're in divine source energy. So we're using the creator energy to heal. When we go back to that, say, core issue, before we maybe made a decision or believed something that created a monetary issue or a health issue, we can literally go back to pre-choice and shift that energy and heal and clear that energy. And then what we see is that shifts in the present moment.
Yeah, that's what I've that's what I've come across a number of times right now with that kind of idea. And there is no time. So
Right.
and that's a great way to say that no matter what you've done in the past, it can be healed. Do you think? Obviously, this kind of leads into karma a bit. What's your views on karma? Because some people will say, yes, karma exists. Others will say, well, it may not exist in the way we think it does.
I would go with that one. The way the Akashic Masters describe karma to us is that it is really just a cycle of learning. And so if you imagine a circle, And at some point, instead of finishing that circle, which would be learning a whole lesson, coming full circle, really understanding in a deep way whatever that was you came to learn, if you leave that cycle, that circle, and you leave it incomplete, what you're doing is you're creating karma. That means that you need to come back at some point and complete that learning. So it's not, it's not anything like the punishment that some people speak of. It's not an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You did something bad is going to happen to you. It's not that at all. That's the way the Akashic Masters say it. They say that if you do something maybe out of integrity, the truth is that something often will come up in our lives to bring that awareness present to us now so that we can change it, so that we can learn, we can do the forgiveness work, because forgiveness is a huge and also pretty simple way to complete karma. Because once you learn, once you understand that you've hurt someone, you can say, I am so sorry. Let me make amends, and please forgive me. And so it's a very different energy. That means you're not actually getting punished for hurting them by saying something unkind. You are becoming aware that you were unkind, so you are now making a new choice, so you can go forward with love and compassion and kindness in your heart. Now you've completed that karma.
Yeah, you've completed that karma, and now you can create a life that you desire more, but perhaps more that, I mean, should we all be heading towards doing in life what we love to do in a sense, and really how fulfilling even the most simplest purpose, whether it's being a mother or whether it's in business or whatever it may be, that heart's desire that you love to do, by accessing these records as well, any blockages can sort of help to be cleared to sort of live the life that you want to live.
Absolutely. That really is our soul's goal. And most of us take hundreds and hundreds of lives to make this all happen, or it kind of goes up and down, I have to say, the way I see it. So we have lives where we're literally enlightened, and yet then we still go back and live through many of these other sorts of unenlightened lives. And again, because there is no true time and space, it's all happening at the same time. So it's all very relative. But yes, as we move into a very heart-centered space, as we can really come to a place where we feel that we are guided, and I like to use the word divinely guided, because when we're guided by something more than our intellect, when we're guided by our heart and our soul, then when we do start to create that purpose from that place of real joy, real love, purpose, and really bringing our gifts out into the world, we're inevitably successful in some way. And that may be being a great mom. That may be holding beautiful energy for our dear planet Earth. That may be doing work for the earth as an ecologist, or really getting your community to recycle. It doesn't have to be something like a public speaker or a healer or anything. There are millions of profound choices that people can make to make a difference in the world, right? So really, if it speaks to you, if it's your passion, absolutely go for it, because it's part of your soul path then.
Absolutely, but often, when people talk about a soul path or purpose, how do you know what that path is?
Well, to me, the interesting thing is that we have numerous paths. Again, because we're these big ancient souls, if you looked at a soul, it would just be this huge, glowing, kind of gigantic energy. It's not some small little wimpy thing. We're not just this little body that we live in, right? We're ancient. And so one of the ways the Akashic Masters and beings of light have explained soul purpose is by using an example about our soul lineages. So it's not a common term. So let me just explain what that means. And I'm like, oh, I'm wearing the wrong necklace. The way they explain it is, if you imagine that you had a pearl necklace or a necklace that had big beads on it, right? So you had that necklace. Each of those pearls is representing a lifetime where you really actualize your soul purpose. So maybe you had 20 or 50 lifetimes as a healer. Maybe once you were a hands-on healer. Maybe in some lives you were an acupuncturist in ancient China. Maybe in some lives you were a shaman and you healed with herbal medicines and plant medicine. So all of these lifetimes, though, all of these pearls make this necklace, this string of the healer. So this is literally a soul lineage that you have. So it's like, if you could imagine, you have many, many, many of these necklaces in your drawer. So you might have a dozen different soul lineages, or a half a dozen to a dozen is what the masters are saying. And so when you come to the earth, each time you would say, it's kind of like, what necklaces am I going to take with me this time? So you would take 2, 3, 4 of your beautiful pearl necklaces. And so you would use them in your lifetime. One may be the parent, the necklace of the soul lineage of the profound, loving, kind, supportive parent. One may be the healer. One may be the author. That was one that I had to find and activate for myself when I decided to. I didn't decide. When the Akashic Masters told me to write my book. A lot of mine's not all that much about choice. A lot of it's about really their guidance. And they are here to guide us in just profound ways. But they suggested, find the author, find the soul lineage of the author, all those lives in which you were a published author, in which you wrote with ease, in which you had much to share, right? And you wrote about it. So all of these different lifetimes make up these soul lineages. And so we can find often in our Akashic Records those lifetimes, those lineages to support us in this lifetime. So it's not one path, it's many, many paths, it's many purposes, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's great, isn't it, to be able to bring forth that part of you that you need in the moment to take you on to your next part of your journey. And there was an author called Dolores Cannon that used to talk about imprints, that sometimes we may not have lived that past life, but it's an imprint that we brought with us from someone else's past life. And rather than, coming down here with no reference of being a leader or whatever the reference you might need, it's imprinted into your soul in a sense.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because again, we really are all one. And so if we don't have it, we can often find some reference, imprint, or, information about that in the Akashic Records. There's huge soul contracts and group information. Of course, there's the collective conscious and unconscious energies. Sometimes they get in our way and sometimes they support us. So it is there. And many of these great leaders and teachers and healers, throughout history, they have shared their wisdom and their imprints with the divine source. So it's available for all of us, right? So
yeah.
The creator information, wisdom, energy to heal ourselves is available for all of us. The consciousness, the Christ consciousness, the consciousness of the Christ force, that energy, not the man Jesus or who we called Christ, but the true divine vibration of the Christed energy is available for all of us to use to heal ourselves and the world. So there is so much of the high energy, light, information, and wisdom that is available. And it's easy to me. One of the reasons to access the Akashic Records is it's easy to find it there instead of kind of struggling along, hit or miss, hoping we're going to find it or stumble on somebody who teaches something about that, right? So much of that is really available in the vast Akashic field and, of course, in our own personal Akashic Records.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is why your work is, just so amazing, because you're able to help people to get into this state as well, to access this untapped side of us. Sometimes, I mean, I'm sure we access these records in dream states, and if we do apply meditation for, I mean, not everyone's going to be able to to come to you, but I mean, if you can't, there are ways to access these just through maybe meditation and trying to meditate our way through to our records potentially. You mentioned healing there as well. That's another important part as well. Through accessing our records, we can have healing as well, can't we? So we may be going through some sort of sickness potentially, but there is another way to look at that illness and see what the Akashic Records have got to tell us about why we might be suffering from this.
Absolutely, because many, many times we bring in our own desires to heal something which may be from the past. You may be healing something from childhood or a trauma. It's interesting that sometimes when I do healing work for people with more extreme illnesses, what I'll find in the records is at some point a desire to not be here that the body took seriously. So there are times in our lives where we say, I don't want to do this anymore. And the body believes you, and you trigger a process to leave. And so that can show up as, of course, an illness. And so part of what we do in the records is we want to go back and we want to heal whatever that trauma was that triggered you to say, I don't want to be here anymore, so that we go back kind of pre-trigger to heal and clear the energy so that we're rewriting. In a sense, we're rewriting our records. We are shifting that energy. We are choosing a new path.
Yes.
So through this, there can be those forms of instantaneous healing or miraculous healing, or just huge openings and shifts in energy. And then we can, of course, go back, and I'm a big advocate of past lives, because I find in the records that much of what we come to do is related to other times and places, things we haven't finished, soul contracts we want to work through, karma, etc., vows. And so we're building on our learning always. And so when we look at physical pain, health issues, they're often triggers from other times, places, past lives, other dimensions also, so that we can work on all of that in the Akashic Records.
Other dimensions, isn't that just, it's funny, a lot of my work just recently has gone into the area of other dimensions, parallel worlds, the multiverse idea. And if this is, it's a scientific theory, but if it's proved to be true, it would explain so much, from UFOs to where we go to when we pass on, with the different dimensions, different levels, infinitive levels, I would say, to go to. And yeah, the soul, when it's incarnated here as we see each other now, but what about if our souls split and there's multiple versions of us out there in different dimensions, different worlds, all accumulating those records?
It is big and complex, and we are, absolutely. So I don't know if you have, I imagine many of the watchers have had this kind of experience, where we often experience it kind of as we're falling asleep. But the way I notice it is I'll be kind of drifting into sleep, and I'll all of a sudden be thinking about or kind of appearing to have a conversation with someone. And in this world, I don't know the person and I don't even know what I'm talking about. But in that world, that dimension, that parallel universe, I'm having a whole conversation with someone that I know about something I know about, you know? And it's always like, whoa, that was so weird. So we do that. We absolutely do that. We have different lives at the same time. And I sometimes will see that in the Akashic Records, which can be really fascinating, where you'll see one lifetime, say, that's taking place between 19 say 1905 and 1925, like maybe you had a short life. And there may have been a longer life that's overlaid that was also going on from the 1890s to the, 1940s. So you can they'll show up in your records that way sometimes. And that's more this dimension. But yeah, we're pretty expansive. It's mind-boggling when you start to get in there and think about it and work with it.
It is, and again, we are all in charge of our own destiny. But do you think, in some respects, after all the work that you've done, that some of our aspects of our life are preordained, that we don't have a choice, or yet there seems to be free will along the journey?
It's a good question. The way I get to answer it is, the pieces that appear preordained is the pieces that we created, or the contracts that we wrote before we came into the body. So you would say, someone who was born into an abusive family, you would say, well, that appears to be preordained. But the truth is that you as a soul chose to come into that abusive family to heal some old karma, to try and help and raise the vibration of those people, try to help them to see the truth and the light and make a different choice. So we literally come into even what we would call terrible situations, because we, as these huge, expansive, infinite souls who know we can never die, say, let me go there and try and help that person and teach them something and help to guide them and show them the love and bring in more light and let me try and change their life path. Let me help them. And some of that may be karmic, and some of that may be coming from like I say, past life contracts. But you've written soul contracts with these people to work with them. And it might be about forgiveness for yourself in your own right also.
Now that makes absolute sense. That does, Lisa. That does resonate as well, shall I say, as a truth. So yes, so we may have agreed to it before, but we still agree to it. Just so it seems preordained now. We came in with an agreement there, basically. Yeah, and another some of details of your work as well. You actually help businesses as well. Now this is an interesting one. So how does a business, how can that be helped from accessing the owner's Akashic Records potentially?
Right. It's pretty amazing, and it's very fun and fascinating work to do, because again, if we go back to that same concept about those pearl necklaces, our soul lineage, well, really part of what we're doing is we're bringing our gifts forward. And for many of many of us, that will show up as a business that we've created. So your business has kind of as an energy, it has its own desires. It has its own purpose. It has what it's come to bring forward in the world. So it almost has a life of its own. It's pretty fascinating, I have to say. And it's, of course, connected to your soul, your gifts, your purpose. So together, we literally would open your records and the records of your business. So say, Kevin, I was working with you, I would probably open your records, right? You would say Kevin Moore, and then you would open the record of The Moore Show. And then you might say, is it in my highest and best interest to, work with this person, to hire this assistant? Do I have karma with these people? Is this going to support the show, and is it going to support me? Kind of what might be the lessons that might be out there, so I can go in with my eyes wide open. And it's interesting. I've worked with some pretty well-known spiritual teachers over here in our world, in the U.S. that I know, and they'll say, which is the highest and best project for me to do? I have so many projects. Which one should I do now? And we really can see the one that has the energy, that has the impetus and vibration to create something positive in the world. And for those people, I've really seen things take off in a lot of pretty amazing ways. So big, expansive projects, helping a lot of people, making a good income from doing the work that we're called to do, which is also part of it. It's, of course, always an energy exchange, right? So it's important that there is an energy exchange. We use a monetary exchange in our world usually. So, and sometimes people exchange other things, right? So when we start to look at our business and our business purpose, we can really work with that to help support your next steps in your business.
Absolutely, and I agree with you about the monetary exchange as well, because in this field, I've been guilty of it as well, where I've said, it's a bit, spiritual, I can't be asking money for that and stuff. Rubbish. It's an exchange of energy, isn't it? And and as Abraham Hicks would say, you don't come down here to be poor. That's not your worth. That's not your birthright. Your birthright is to have what you want. It's depending whether you feel that you're worthy of that or not. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So, and as Seth channels stuff from Seth as well would say, you create your reality. So, I agree with you there. And it's funny you mentioned I mentioned about the business, but just what you said about the business was really interesting, because a company that I'm just about to form, that I've been working on for many years, the concept of something called More Choice, where it's going to be a bit like a distribution company for different products, but I'm going to be putting the cost price and our buying price on there. And if you think it's worthy of an exchange of money based on knowing what we're making from it, then it's something very different. But I just wanted to do something different like that. And yeah, I can see what you're saying, how that fits into my record, probably, in a sense. And that the business does have a life of its own in that way as well. I'm probably going all over the place here right now, but I just wanted to share that with you and everyone else. But when we talk about the business as well, obviously you can apply this to other parts of your life, where there's wisdom as well in experiencing failure, surely, in the records.
Well, there's a good question for you. Absolutely. It's always about learning and growth. Really, the big reason, if you just would ask the Akashic Masters, why do we come here? It's to learn and grow. So all sides of the coin, both sides of the coin are going to be about learning and growth. If we can learn it, get it, and grow from it. So if we have a business failure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Right. So if we have a business failure, then we can open our own records, or come to me for a reading and say, what was the failure about? What's the learning? Is there something that I'm stuck on? Is there an energy pattern? Is there some karma I'm unaware of? Do I have soul contracts that I need to complete so that I can get unstuck from this, I'm such a failure kind of belief? What is that belief? Where does that come from? So literally, when we can see, understand, expand around that concept of failure, then we can shift it and say, oh, so that business didn't work out. Maybe it was, the masters may say, divine timing. It wasn't quite time yet. You're ahead of your time. So you step back, regroup, and maybe you wait for a year or two because it's not quite time yet. So it's not that you failed or it wasn't a good product or you aren't a good teacher. It's that it's divine timing.
Of course.
So we can learn so many different things. And then, of course, as we learn them, then we can go forward with much greater ease and grace in our lives.
I like that.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now, obviously, you are the founder of the Akashic. Is it? How do you pronounce it? So I've got the Akashic or Akashic.
I say Akashic.
Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom. Now, tell us about that school and what programs you do there.
So, in this school, I teach people how to access their own Akashic records. So, there's an entry level basic class. How do you read the records? How do you open so in course 1, I teach people the 3 vibrational keys to open your records. I teach them 7 healing prayers and other tools. I teach them all sorts of ways to kind of get centered in what I call, or what the Akashic Masters actually call, your 3 brains, bringing your really mind, body, which is part of your 3rd chakra brain, and heart, your spirit, all together in alignment, so that they've given me tons and tons and tons of tools and are always giving me more. So in the first course, in the first entry level class, which you can do live with me in California. I do travel, and I'll toss in that I'm going to be in the UK in October teaching in Glastonbury. And maybe we can share a little more about that later. But so in that first course, you learn to open the records for yourself. And then we go on to what I'm calling Akashic self-mastery. And so in that course, you're going really deep into the expanse of the records. You're learning about your past lives and how to heal some of that trauma. You're learning about your ancestral lineage, your genetic lineage, how it affects your life now. We talk about our soul lineage. Remember those beautiful, pearl necklaces? We want to connect to them, bring them present in our lives. We work with creativity. And of course, very, very important, we are working with self-esteem and self-worth and self-love. Because when we can start to heal those aspects of ourselves, we really can be the that we came to be. So all of that, those courses are really part of the Akashic Self-Mastery. And then I go on and teach Akashic Career Mastery, where people can learn to access the records for others. Go very, very deep. It's a several month program, which I do as a teleseminar. So I do actually teach it online, so people all over the world can access it. And you learn to be a consultant. You practice. We do work around clearing our lack, our hidden money beliefs. The things that keep us from creating successful businesses in the world. And we do even work around what we would call, the marketing piece, the business piece, the coaching piece, so that you can have a successful Akashic Record career and you become one of my certified Akashic Knowing consultants. And so I have them on my Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom website, so people can find other Akashic consultants around the world. And
I love it. So the work
with other people outside of me.
No, that's great. I mean, I love that aspect of it, that, the work continues. No matter what, the work will carry on because you've put so much into this, and this won't be lost knowledge in a sense for one day. It's going to continue, and I think what you're doing is fantastic as well. Now, okay, so to get information about these, what's going on, obviously your website's been flashing up on the screen. Is that the best place to go to?
So the simple website is, yes, akashicknowing.com. That's the best place. You can go under, it says courses, Akashic classes. So you can see the list of courses 1 through 3. You'll see the description of them, where they're being taught live. So you can get more information about the Glastonbury class, which is October 23rd through the 25th. So you can actually register there. So akashickknowing.com, and then under classes. And if people are interested in doing a one-on-one consultation and healing with me, that also is on that same website at Akashic Knowing under Akashic Healings and Readings.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, we've linked all that up. Let's just come on the screen now. It has as well. What would you say is the most important message in your work?
That's a fabulous question. You know, the most important message that the Akashic Masters want us to understand is that we truly are infinite and divine beings, and that there really is no right or wrong, that we are here for our spiritual growth and expansion. We are here to be the love, to be the service, to heal this planet right now. And so when we can see the fact that there's so many ways that we can be of service to the world, to ourselves, to our community, our family, it's profound. And that we never, ever, ever die, and we are always completely and utterly loved by the Creator, that we are perfect divine beings. And so really the message is love.
Well, Lisa Barnett, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on, Kevin.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.